I'm worried that if I die whilst I'm in living statue mode, would anybody notice? And would I benefit from any of the money that's popped into the box?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hull Museum's Pride in Our City podcast. I'm your host, Dan Vo, and I would love for you to get your diary out. Please, whether it's an electronic or whether it's one of those analog papery things where you have to scribble in it by hand, get it out because I'd love for you to put this date into your calendar. It is August 14. That's Saturday, August 14. What's so special about that date, you ask? Well, it is going to be the day of the launch of the Pride in Our City exhibition, and it's going to celebrate Hull's LGBTQ plus history at the Ferens Art Gallery. So the sky is going to be full of rainbows on that day. Fairies will anoint your footsteps with sprinkles of rainbow glitter as you walk towards the gallery. And when you get inside, I promise you, it will be full of queer laughter, merriment and mirth. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and it would be such a thrill to have you there as well. So please, please, please get your sparkliest outfit ready, and you're going to have a ball with us. Now, once upon a time, William Shakespeare was designated bisexual icon for LGBT plus History Month. And I just want to hone in on that because he was famous for having said, "Oh, that glisters is not gold. Often you have heard that told." Well, that's my best Shakespearean anyway. But in the case of Andy Train, it's very much true. He is pure gold. If not pure gold, at least his heart is pure gold, because our guest for this month is a registered nurse, is a Pride aficionado, has been to many Prides around the world and wears lots and lots of hats as well in Hull. Chair of Hull and East Riding LGBT plus Forum, trustee of Pride in Hull, and is also a Global Advisory Council member for Britain on Interpride, which is the international organisation representing Prides all around the world. And as you've heard from the very top of the podcast too, you'll very much know him as a local sparkly outfit wearing person because he is the gold man. And as you'll also hear during the interview today, you'll also find that he's also occasionally a big gold Willie Shakespeare as well. So I had a lot of fun talking with him, and it is Andy Train. So here he is now. Over to you, Andy.
My name's Andy Train. I'm a former registered nurse. I do training, mostly GP surgeries, dental practices, but a lot of talks around LGBT plus diversity in schools and colleges as well.
There's so much I want to talk to you about, Andy, because it seems like you're involved with almost everything in Hull.
It's one of those cities where you're probably 0.5 distanced away from somebody that other people know. It's a really strange experience because there's lots of things where when new people come in and they just sort of talk to me and I go, well, you want to speak to them, and you'll be sorted. But it's really great to be involved. And I'm one of these people, sadly, who can't even go to, say, Gran Canaria without getting involved with their Pride event because I have to be, even if it's just handing out flyers or saying hello to people, I have to be involved.
So does that mean you've picked up all these ideas from Prides all around the world and now Pride in Hull can incorporate them all?
Yeah, I think that we do. I also kind of reflect on what we do in Hull and think we do a really good job. As former CEO for Hull City of Culture said, we achieve in that we get everybody there, including their heterosexual wife. The other prides, that they're part of they're part of their city and their DNA, and they should be proud of that, and they are. And there have been a lot of, a bit like football, where you have teams sort of competing against each other, and a similar kind of sense with prides that Hull's better than Leeds or Leeds is better than Hull or Manchester. And it really isn't about that. And I think it's dispelling that myth that actually we are together and we are stronger in the union together, and we need to help each other and support each other. And what Manchester does, Hull doesn't, isn't going to do, because it's a very different experience, the same as much as Brighton or even Pride in London. But celebrating our own communities wherever you are in the country.
Let's talk about your training with communities. How do you approach it with the organisation that you're working with? How do you get them to be as diverse and as inclusive as possible? What are the steps, I suppose? What are the things that need to happen?
I think that we need to, first of all, communicate with the people that we have either as staff or as customers and kind of talk to them. For example, at a local college here, where the concern about the staff saying the wrong thing to folks who are on their journey as far as, being transgender, and kind of explaining that, talk to them, ask them what they want to be called, talk about pronouns, discuss things, have visibility within your facilities that not just every June fly a rainbow flag, but actually engage with colleagues, let people know, have conversations, workshops, bring people in from outside. There's absolutely stacks of wonderful organisations, including, whatever your local Pride event is or your LGBT plus friendly venues are, and get them involved, and all those wonderful support groups we've got, and give them a platform and an opportunity. Find out what facilities you've got within your town, cities, areas where people can be safe, your safe spaces. So doing all of that, and then looking at your policies and procedures, do they ring true in the way that you're kind of presenting yourself?
You've mentioned the rainbow flag. So there are many options out there now, some more representative than others. What is the flag that is used at Pride in Hull?
Last year we had More Colour, More Pride, which was part of the conversation we've been having with our friends from the Hull Black Heritage Collective to, recognise that that's a community that really we have a lot in common with here in Hull, and that there are a lot of people who come to the UK because that is an issue, from the country of their origin, and they want to come to somewhere, rightly so. You want to be safe. We want you to be a true and authentic person, so you can live your lives, get on with it. But we've progressed into the last 2 years on a more digital footing, but looking at the Progress Pride flag, and in fact also as part of Creative Hull, going to be adding the intersex element to it, and the conversation that I had recently with Valentino regarding the way that they're kind of progressing the flag in that way. So many flags, so much choice.
I was at Trans Pride in London, and it was wonderful to see these thousands of people marching, and the flag that you mentioned now, the one that was added to by Valentino Vicetti, it was flown to represent the intersex community as part of the wider community as well. I was hoping you could just describe it for us, Andy.
Yeah, Progress Pride, if you know how that looks with the chevrons, which introduced, you've got your rainbow section on there, so your sort of 1979 version with the 6 colours going down, red through to purple, and then you've got your chevrons, so you're brown with regard to the conversation around race, black with regard to those sadly who've died of AIDS and living with HIV, then you've got your trans colours in there as well, but you've also got that element of yellow and purple ring in the middle, which to many is quite a wow, that's really different, and it stands out. And then the conversation that happens from there on in. So adding that in has increased obviously what you've got on that flag. But I think any flag within our communities that we've got representing many different facets, whether it be gender identity, sexual orientation, or even, dare I say, fetish, is worthy of use in the right place for that conversation.
Our community is becoming more and more inclusive and representative. So there's inevitably more letters being added to the acronym.
I think that the longest one recently was 16 letters long. And people are like, oh, goodness me, you and your alphabet soup. I think that some people take a lot of strength in having an element within that they can identify with, but also being part of a wider family. I know we, looking at Pride events and looking at the LGBTQIA plus community generally, often we're very bad at looking after each other. And I mean, that's just a crazy thing, To me, you just be yourself, as you want to present. So I think that it is nice to have lots of choices. But again, back to this whole conversation thing, I think it's great for having that conversation with people about how diverse and interesting we are.
Andy, you're so welcoming and open, and I just wanted to know, how did you become so inclusive? Is it training? Is it practice? Is it something that is just innate?
For me, it's maybe back to being a nurse and having this non-judgmental attitude and wanting people to be happy, feel comfortable, feel safe, because I think that's something that I didn't necessarily feel even within the last sort of 20 years. I mean, I came out in 2002. In hindsight, I know that certainly there were, I wasn't as straight as I thought I was from about the age of 15, but living through a childhood in the 80s, earlier sort of 20s, being Section 28 in schools, and then not being anything really out there in the world. Pride in Hull began in 2002. I was there. It was a few lesbians, a few tables and a dog. It was really small, but I think it was super important, and it was brilliant that was happening. And there was, as far as I was aware, there's no march. I heard it on local BBC radio that this was happening. I was just coming back from Manchester with a mate of mine. I'd gone for another weekend away, which was spirited on by queer as folk. For me, that was the kind of mecca of that, still exploring who I was, even still as a married man, trying to working out what was going on in my head and feeling desperately lost, and to the point of suicidal, and there not being anything for me. There were youth groups available. There was a group at the university, but nothing really tangible for an adult, and had to go to another city, which I thought was just absolutely crackers. There should be facilities and support networks within the city that I call home. And that's kind of spurred me on, really. So that's been my major motivator from that point on.
You've just mentioned suicide, so I think it's worth mentioning that if you, the listener, need support, there are fantastic people out there who you can talk to, who can support you. And Andy, you're the chair of Hull and East Riding LGBT Forum, and there's certainly one of those groups that are just great for someone to reach out to, looking for support, but also, I suppose, looking for a social connection as well.
Yeah, it's a really fantastic networking opportunity. I always say to people, you could come with a bag full of problems and you will have some super positive responses from professional people who attend that meeting on a monthly basis. So you could come in as a member of the community and you will have the NHS, mental health support, sexual health support groups of all kinds are all there, and people who, even from local authority representing the local council, so both the East Riding and also Hull, we have councillors present. And so you can leave with a really bright future of support and direction, and even the conversations that maybe don't happen whilst the meeting's going on, that will happen afterwards. It's absolutely amazing in that. And we also get a really good snapshot of what is going on every month.
I just want to make a quick shift, Andy, because you've mentioned City of Culture, and I really want to talk with you about the cultural icon that is the Goldman.
Oh my goodness. The Goldman was something that was my major backup plan if all else failed as a self-employed person. So if nobody wants me for training, what if people just go, no, Andy, you were good when you were in the NHS, but now, like baby's attention span, you've left the room, you've gone. And I thought, well, it's one step up from begging, it's posh begging. So I'll paint myself in gold. I'll living. I've always been good at sort of dead fishes as a child, and I thought, well, I'll sit still and see what happens. So this kind of character kind of developed after an incident at the Edinburgh Festival where I took over the kilt shop window of a mate of mine who makes fantastic kilts, 21st century kilts. And he said, look, we'll take the middle mannequin away and I'll stand in the window and I'll go find some body paint, face paint, and I'll put me in the kilt suit and I'll stand there all day. He had so many people coming into the shop randomly just to have a look. And so many people, sort of 50 plus people always looking in to sort of if I would move or to make their partner jump or whatever. So this kind of came back to Hull. I did it in Primark's window as a mannequin. I've done it in New Look, kind of progressing up the scale of kind of, retail. And then the opening of Hull Truck Theatre, I was William Shakespeare and in gold. And then this businessman, this character having fish and chips for his lunch, seagull on his head. So I've got a pretend seagull pretending to be real. I'm covered in seagull poop and I'm real pretending not to be real. And you can come and sit next to me on my bench and you can join in because it's all about joining in. So you can have your picture, you can have your selfie, you can do whatever you want to do. So I suggested to our comms team for Hull, City of Culture and sort of promoting it, why don't we take a load of culture down on a train to... We've got Hull trains, so let's go down to London, and we'll take our culture carriage down to London, and we'll get the Bishop of Hull, we'll get the Lord Mayor, we'll get the Hull Philharmonic Orchestra, we'll get the Goldman, we'll get all these other things going on in there, all in this carriage, and we'll get down to London, take some culture to London. So it became, the Goldman, or the identity of the Goldman became ingrained into what I was all about and what it was all about. but then having that opportunity to bring in a really key part. It was LGBT 50. It was the 50th anniversary of the partial decriminalisation of homosexuality in England and Wales. That's catchy, I know.
Such a mouthful, isn't it?
We did that year, and we were the first UK Pride. So 2017, incredible year for the city, but an absolutely amazing year for Pride in Hull. I'd been elected as co-chair for the UK Pride Organisers Network and had this crazy idea suggested to the rest of the members of the UK Pride Organisers Network that we elevate one Pride nationally, not because it's bigger or better than anywhere else, just to give it that little bit of a lift, a little bit of emphasis, embolden, support, emboss, whatever you want to call it. And I said, well, we're City of Culture, let's give it a go in Hull. If everybody's happy with that, let's if we'll go with it, we'll go with it. So we had that. So it was perfect.
Well, from Pride in Hull to Pride in our city, perhaps, the exhibition, what could we see in this exhibition, Andy? What is something that you would like to represent Pride in Hull in this exhibition?
For Pride in our city, I think the thing that always makes me smile is in the memorabilia, and particularly the wristbands that we kind of got into fairly early on in our Pride journey in the city, that people had collected them. We've kind of gone a bit more eco-friendly over the last couple of years because we do have biodegradable and recycled and all the rest of it now. But seeing some young people who are maybe not so young now, who've over the last sort of 20 years collected wristbands, and often often I've given talks at colleges where somebody's kind of sidled up with all these wristbands on, some of them a little bit worse for wear. They're so proud of all that. But I think it's people's own experiences and stories, because I'm involved with a team, because obviously it is a team that make this thing happen. It can't be just one soul. That's just kind of impossible. And so many different people have elements that they manage on that day that come together to make it all happen. It's individual people's experiences, like, where they went for the after party, or, did they buy anything at the Pride, whether photographs, experiences, maybe an image and then a little bit of writing about a backstory about, how they weren't going to go, but then did go. The stories about, seeing people waiting for buses, all sort of bedecked in rainbow, and just gathering, almost sort of like, the Pied Pipers calling everybody, and the rainbow flag is flying and everybody's being called back home, and they're all coming in to the city centre. But it's hearing those stories are just wonderful. And that parade, seriously, I mean, a parade, or in fact, if anybody from America's listening, I must say march, because they're very damning whenever us Brits say parade, because it is still a march. There are still things we've got to keep going. If we take our eye off that ball, no matter how rainbow, glittering, sparkly that ball is bouncing up and down, if we don't keep an eye on that ball and keep it going, these rights, these opportunities, and for many of us, these privileges that we've got will be taken from us. And that's the thing for me about Pride. But yeah, Pride in our city, I think I'm excited to see and hear people's personal stories about, I do one thing, parade organising and being on stage and getting that giant rainbow flag over the crowd, but I want to hear about how it makes people feel.
And what if I was to ask you about something for LGBT Forum? What would go in the exhibition? What would you contribute to the exhibition?
I think it would probably be an agenda. I know that sounds a bit sad and a bit kind of, oh my goodness, how bland. But the format has worked for a long time now, in that, welcome, introductions. Often we do have a speaker each month. We usually do it at the Guildhall. I always say there's something very special about that, because it's the perceived seat of power. I know you don't kind of have, that's where the council meet, I guess. And why not the LGBT plus community as well? Why not us? And of course we do, and we have done historically met that. But yeah, an agenda will be there, and it's kind of set in the group reports, and then any other business and the conversations that happen, and the wonderful support that is involved with that meeting, and the experience, and I don't know, just the lovely nature of all the people who are there, because yes, okay, it's their job, but the dedication to helping us just seeps through it.
Andy, to wrap, I'd love to hear from you what you think is the power of history to shape how we understand ourselves. In the context of Pride in our city, why does understanding queer history in Hull, why is that important?
We're very lucky that we've got LGBT plus History Month each year, because it does give us that focus and almost, if you like, a reset towards the beginning of the year to reflect on the year gone, to look forward to the rest of the year ahead, including our own Pride. And I always challenge people, go to your local Pride, support that regardless. Go to a slightly bigger Pride within your region, then go to a biggie, and you'll get the full experience. And if you can, volunteer, if you feel capable. But I think we need to remember the struggle and the challenge that faced people years gone by, where folks were deemed to be illegal, where you couldn't, the age of consent, for example, is a really good way of kind of reflecting on that. And some of the young people now, when you mention it, they're just mortified that, you had to be 21. But of course, it's a sin. And Queer as Folk, and I would say generally Russell T Davies, have kind of helped us in an easy way, and even Pride the movie, in an easy way, kind of have access to that. And I know there's absolutely stacks of literature out there that kind of show how things, and even in the form of art, how, the LGBT plus community has kind of played a role through history, even quietly, just getting on with it behind the scenes without causing too much of a fuss. But that journey, particularly from the 70s in the UK to now, that's ongoing. We still have things, gender recognition, making sure that, holding politicians to account to say, you set your stall out, we're going to do this, let's keep that going forward. Please do not forget, and keeping that pressure up. We've got to maintain that. Yes, there's a lot of things that have been repeal of Section 28, equal marriage, even now as we speak, the Methodist Church allowing same-sex couples to marry in there, if people want that, It is truly wonderful, but we've got to keep on going. I think Pride to me is everything. Well, I could say Pride to me is everything, but also one thing. And you've just got to find that one thing.
Well, that is lovely. Find your thing, find your passion, find your rainbow. Andy, it was a treat. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure.
This has been the Pride in Our City podcast for Hull Museums. You can find us on social media, on Twitter as @Hull_museums. I've been Dan Vo, and you can find me as @DanNouveau. The podcast was edited by me and mixed by Samuel Gunn. If you like what you heard, please do rate, review and subscribe. Get involved as well. You can always find out how you can do that by going onto the website humbermuseums.co.uk and just search for Pride in Our City. That's it for today. Thank you so much. I will see you again. Bye.